Yeah.
Good morning, Gresham. I'm Sarah with your comms team here at the city, and I am joined today by my two illustrious colleagues whom I will let introduce themselves.
Chief Travis Gullberg, good to see everyone.
Hi, I'm Scott Lewis. I'm the fire chief.
And we wanted to take a few minutes this morning and chat with our community about the Fire and Police Safety Levy that is on the May ballots coming up next week. So also an important plug, don't forget to vote. We know there have been lots of questions. We've seen a lot of questions come in on our social media, at the different events we've been holding, phone calls, emails, all of the things. So we wanted to take some time and answer as many as we can in the time we have here this morning. As always, you're welcome to add questions into the comments, into our chat. We'll try to get through as many as we can. If we end up running out of time, we'll go back through and get back and follow up with you. So feel free to leave any questions in there and someone will follow up with you regarding those. So, all right. I think before we dive into the questions, it's really important to kind of set the stage or the foundation. So let's start with, why is the levy needed and what is it going to pay for? And I will let you guys like rock, paper, scissors to figure out who gets to answer first. Why
I'll defer to age and experience.
Perfect.
You could have gone with age before beauty.
Sorry. Yes.
Yes. So over the years, the city's grown, both physical, geographic dimensions, more population, and with that growth and that population is the increase for demands for service for both fire and police.
Mm-hmm.
And without getting into the weeds too much, the tax structure in Oregon simply doesn't keep up. It doesn't allow the growth that we need to improve the level of services. So basically, both departments are operating at about the same level of people they were 20 or 30 years ago. So we have, from the fire side, we have no more new fire stations. We have the same number of fire engines, the same single ladder truck, and the same battalion chief on duty every day. So the idea that we've could do with less just simply isn't true anymore. We've tightened the belt as far as they can, and there simply is going to be a tipping point where we can't keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah, and we always talk about throwing a lot of data and stats at people, and sometimes that's overwhelming. And I think, to put it simply, we do not have enough firefighters or police officers to do the work in Gresham to keep Gresham safe. And that's where we're at. And as Chief alluded to, we need that funding to be able to support that staff that we need to be able to keep Gresham safe. So we could throw at you the data of the population growth over the last 20, 30 years. I can tell you that we have 2 less police officers than we did 20 years ago. But again, what I would stress is keeping it simple is we need more firefighters and police officers to do the work that we need to do in our community to keep everyone safe.
So what is the levy going to pay for then?
Yeah, good question. I'll start off on this one. How about that? For police in particular, we get 9 police officers. Okay. And how that's different than last time, because I know that people have been asking, what's different than last time? That's actually an increase. We were only looking at 7 last time. Okay. And now we're looking at 9 sworn police officers to do the work that a police officer needs to do. But on top of that, we're also retaining 26 positions. Which is important. And that retainment grows over the life of the levy, the 5-year span. So that's important too. So not only are we going to get additional positions to do the work, we're not going to lose any positions as well. And then broadly, as we have talked before, Sarah, quite often about different approaches to policing and the alternative response models. We added the community safety specialist, unarmed individuals that can respond to, take reports, help investigate lower level offenses.
Right.
We're going to be adding those positions as well to support our overall approach to keeping the community safe.
So now I know you touched on the community safety specialists, and we've had 2 that have been funded through American Rescue Fund Act dollars in the past year, right? Ava and Zach, I believe. Yeah,
just a little over a year. Yep.
How has that been going?
Oh, tremendous. Not only do they have internal support from our staff that can't keep up with the workload, they have external support as well, meaning our customer service has gone through the roof. We estimate somewhere between 30 to 40% of the reporting that we have going on right now, they're handling. Again, you imagine we need
Huge.
police officers. You often tell stories about, one call, and I know the chief feels the same way for his firefighters. One call could take essentially a whole shift,
Sure.
7, 10, 12 people to respond to that. An unfortunate shooting in our community, right? What has to wait oftentimes is that lower level stuff. I just got back from vacation and I need to file a report because somebody broke into my shed and took my tools. Okay, well, we might get to it tomorrow. We might get to it the next day. Well, with the CSSs, they're getting to it with under 24 hours, and they're doing it with follow-up and saying, hey, how can we help you through the process? If you gain any additional information in the future, get a hold of us, and staying with the individuals throughout the whole process. So
That's amazing.
What I want to stress is if we don't get the levy,
Right.
those
We don't get to
positions,
keep
we don't get
those.
to support those positions. Correct.
Chief Lewis, how about you? From your perspective, what does the levy get us?
So similar to the police department, it supports positions we already have. Most directly are 4 of those ARPA or COVID funded positions, COVID relief funds. Those people are working today.
Yeah.
So it keeps 4 of those. And we talk about in the fire service response times, unit reliability, and all these other kind of things. What it really comes down to is, do you have somebody available to respond in your community to the call that you have? Whether it's Mrs. Smith that needs help getting up, somebody's had a heart attack, somebody's had an auto accident, or on the top end for us, there's a structure fire with people trapped. So I mentioned earlier that we're working with the same number of resources we have for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, the levy passing will put an additional 2-person rescue. That's a firefighter, paramedic, and another firefighter on in a pickup truck with life-saving equipment that can respond to generally the lower acuity calls. That response leaves that big red truck, the fire engine, in service for the more critical calls, for the auto accidents with people trapped, or the actual structure fire.
Okay.
So we have one of those at our station 7-4, which is a very busy station. Station 7-2 is also very busy. One key point about station 7-2 is about half the time when that fire engine goes out on a call, there's another call in that immediate area. So with the fire engine already tied up, the next crew is a fire engine from someplace else in the city. So the one from the downtown station comes in, or the one from Troutdale comes up, or whatever that is. And then you have a cascade effect where now they're not available for the calls in their area. So that 2-person rescue would respond to a couple thousand calls a year, leaving that fire engine available more often for the next call or your call. So that's an additional resource, first additional resources we've added in a long time. Okay. And that's from the emergency response perspective. And we're also going to add staff positions, similar but different than the police departments, where we're going to add 2 deputy fire marshals. And this will, even with these 2 new ones, we still won't have the life safety division help, the fire marshal help that we had in 2020, or pardon me, in 2000. So we've taken cuts over the years, and we're still not back to where we used to be. So of those 2 people, one of them will be specifically assigned to inspect our schools for fire.
So that's
hazards.
not happening right now.
That is not happening.
School inspection.
Correct. That proactive school inspection, keeping our kids safe. Now, our custodians and our maintenance staff in our schools do an excellent job.
Of course.
I'm not trying to say they don't, but they're not deputy fire marshals. They don't know everything to look for.
Sure.
And it's been a long time since we've been able to do those school inspections on a regular basis. And it's really important to get back in there and get that work started again.
I was amazed to find out that that's not happening.
That's not a regular thing. Like,
yeah,
as a parent, that would give me such anxiety just thinking about sending my kids to a school that,
So then when you think about what the levy is giving you and you say inspectors to keep our schools safe, it hits the mark for me. And I hope it hits the mark for the community.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good couple of questions.
Yeah,
Sorry, let's keep going. So how does Gresham, the city of Gresham, compare with other cities in the Portland metro region in terms of their fire and police departments? wants to go first?
You led the last one, I'll
Yeah.
lead this one.
Go ahead.
If you, Gresham is the fourth largest city in the state.
Mhm.
We trail only behind Portland, Eugene, and Salem.
I believe. Yeah.
But in the metro area, we have Hillsborough, Beaverton are two cities just a little bit smaller than us.
Mhm.
And their resources availability to them are considerably different. They have more firefighters on each piece of apparatus, so that they can sometimes they can go with a single piece of equipment, a single fire engine, where we may have to send two to have enough people, because sometimes 3 people isn't enough. So we have to send an extra fire engine on those house fires or those apartment fires,
Mhm.
where they can send one less. When we send ours, then there's nobody available for that next call sometimes.
Okay.
So on a firefighter per capita, we're under. When it comes to meeting the national standards for number of people on a fire engine, we're under. As we look at response times, how long it takes to get from the station to where the call for service is, we missed that mark.
Mhm.
And this levy isn't asking to fix all of our woes at one
Of
time.
course not.
This
Yeah,
is
we
this is
can't.
this is making an incremental step to make it better, put more resources available for the community.
Yeah, I
That's a good
often,
point.
yeah, it is a very good point. I often share, imagine, and this is the reality for Gresham, that we, at any given time, we could have maybe 7 to 9 police officers for 116,000 population.
Staggering when you think of how big Gresham is.
Yeah, and one of the stories the chief likes to tell is the model around your local McDonald's. And then you think about a lunchtime shift at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And they probably have 12, maybe 15 people. As you can imagine, lunchtime is very busy for a McDonald's.
Sure.
They have more people serving hamburgers at
one
lunch
retail.
than we do police officers, patrolling and responding to 911 calls in the city of Gresham. And that, compared to our other cities that you brought up, we are under. But I will tell you, and I think it's probably similar for fire as well. I just found out recently that the state of Oregon is dead last, 50th in the nation for per 1,000 capita police officers
Really?
to 1,000. Well under the national average. For us, we're under, or we're hovering right around 1 officer per 1,000. The national average is more like in the 2 to 2.4 range.
Okay.
Ideally, you'd be at the 3 to 4 range. We haven't hit that mark for decades, but the reality is we're not even hitting the lowest mark. And then again, Oregon as a state is challenged by being well under and being dead last nationally. So when you compare us, we're challenged. And when I go back to the idea of one significant incident for either one of us, a structure fire with people in it, a shooting in our local communities, it's a whole shift. And then what do? Well, we're calling other people in, we're monitoring them in, we're asking for other agencies.
Do we
for
rely
assistance.
on other agencies
Yeah,
then?
oftentimes.
Yeah, we certainly do. We share a very long border with Portland.
True.
In fact, there's a Portland fire station, which is one block inside the city of Portland. We co-staff that with them because about 1/3 of its calls come into the city of Gresham and 2/3 into the city of Portland. So we staff one of the 3 shifts there. It's a very unique relationship.
Yeah.
It gives us a full fire station for 1/3 of the cost. And for Portland, it gives them a full fire station for 2/3 of the cost. So it works very well for both cities. But like the chief said, if we have an apartment fire and we send 5 of our 6 engines to an apartment fire, the ladder truck, and battalion chief, that leaves us 1 fire engine covering the city of Gresham and our contract service area. So we depend on Portland quite a bit. There's some other people doing this public ed work, and they'll point out on April 2nd or something, we had a fire out by Kane and Powell that took all of our resources. So the only Gresham resource responding to the next fire was myself and one of those 2-person rescues. All the fire engines and the ladder truck and the battalion chief were all coming from Portland, simply because we didn't have the resources to send ourselves. So I'm pretty good at my job. I should not be the only one going to your fire.
So oftentimes, and I don't know if you guys got this question or not, or if it's going to come in at some point, but we often get challenged with this idea that isn't this just a staffing issue? Isn't this
Yes.
your inability to hire people or
why
bring
can't you
people and keep people,
retain? Yeah.
retain people?
Yeah.
And I would say there can be two truths, right? Yes, that is true. We are, and both of us have focused, and our staff have focused on how do we improve recruitment, how do we improve our hiring process, how do we retain staff. But the same truth is also that even when you start off with the numbers that we're budgeted for, they're not enough to do the work that we need to be getting done.
Right.
So we need to be focusing on hiring and retaining people, but we also need to be focusing on how are we going to meet the demands of the future if we don't have enough staff and resources.
Population's only going to continue to increase.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think we've touched on this a little bit, but one of the other questions that we've received is if the levy is approved, what specific changes can we expect from fire and police? And we've touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you want to add or clarify that at all.
Yeah, I think again, I would focus on ensuring that we're able to staff appropriately for our shift work and responding to 911 calls, reducing those times, response times that Chief talked about. In any emergency, seconds count, and so improving our overall responses and our ability to customer service in a broad spectrum of ways. So enhancing that connectivity and to be able to file reports online and get follow-up investigations, improving our response times. You're gonna see it now. You might not see it in a day,
Right.
So I think that's an unrealistic expectation that we're going to change everything even in 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
But again, it's that forward looking of how do we meet the demands that are coming? We know they're coming. Our population has grown significantly. I think it was 20-30%.
Yeah.
And it really a short period of time when you think about things. It's only going to grow more.
Right.
So we need to be getting ahead of that now while also concentrating on getting our staffing that we need right now.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but in my head, if you have more patrol staff, that allows your staff to be able to do some of the other things that they might not be doing right now, such as more detectives for that investigative work or more any of the specialty units. Are you guys thinking through any of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I participated in a Justice Fellowship conversation last night. And one of the questions that often comes up is around community policing.
Yeah.
And where did community policing go? And I participated with the Portland Police Bureau. And Chief Day shared, community policing is still there. The problem is we don't have the staffing to be able to do all that much needed work that needs to be done. And community policing also includes the community, right? And working alongside them and collaborating with them. And we just don't have the ability right now to do that work. Yes, as we gain the staffing, and again, we need additional staffing and make sure we retain the ones we currently got. We look forward to bringing back those very specific work groups that do stuff around like traffic enforcement and keeping our roads safe, school resource officers to keep our schools safe, detective work and specialized work like around child abuse investigation and domestic violence abuse investigations. So yes, that stuff we will get back. Again, I think it's unrealistic to expect that this didn't happen overnight, and we're here now, and we got to work together to get back. But we also need additional resources because even when we're fully staffed, we're not meeting the demand of our community.
Right. It's a step in the right direction.
Right.
Chief Lewis, what do you think?
Similar to my comments earlier, what's going to change is for us, there'll be an additional resource in the Life Safety Division with those 2 new deputy fire marshals and that additional rescue available on the east side of town. Even if you don't live on the east side of town, that resource helps you because your fire engine can stay where you live and not have to go someplace else through that cascade of calls. So while we're only adding 1 additional staffed resource, it has again, use the word cascade of effect. It helps across the city by improving that response time reliability and unit availability.
I think that's a great point, the ripple effect that some of these changes have. I know fire, police, those are your specialties, but we do hear a lot of comments with this general sentiment. So what would you say to people who are concerned about how this levy is going to impact their families' budgets?
I will take that and say, I understand.
You live in Gresham,
You
right?
live here, right?
I live here.
Much of our staff does.
Yeah, a lot of our city staff lives in town. And everybody knows everything costs more than it did a few years ago. And if we wait until the timing is perfect for everybody, we would never be able to improve our service delivery.
Mm.
Good point.
So, will it impact you? Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to pay a little bit more. I think it's important that they understand, and we may get to this a little later, the levy attaches to your assessed value of your home, not your real market value.
Very different.
So when I hear somebody in the community say, you can't buy a house in Gresham
Right.
any place for $250,000 or $275,000. I agree with that,
Right.
but we're paying on assessed value, not on real market value.
Right.
So when you try to do the math, it won't be as expensive as maybe you think. If you look
That's
at
a
your
good
tax bill, look
point.
at your assessed value, and then apply that $1.35 to your assessed value.
And the county has great tools for that too. If anyone wants to, you can go on Multnomah County's website. You can look at all of their assessed value tools that they have and figure out what this could potentially cost your family.
Yeah, when I have these conversations, I don't. Yeah, I really am cognizant of not minimizing the impacts.
Sure.
Many of my family live here. My father lives here, and I only don't live here because when I came back, I was welcomed into a community over on the other side of the river, and I stayed there. And
Yeah.
But otherwise, my heart was with Gresham.
You grew up here.
Yeah, I grew up here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve Gresham again. But and I understand that concept about fixed income and the impacts that all taxes are having. And I know there's a lot of ask, right? There's going to be a lot of ask on this ballot. Right? I know there's a Metro bond coming out, and et cetera. So I'm cognizant of that. But I also think about how many more firefighters we need and how many more police officers we need to keep you safe and to save lives. And to reduce crime in our community and to work collaboratively with our community to reduce fear of crime. Yeah. And we just don't have enough. And so I'm with Chief. I get it. It's impactful. It costs money. I don't minimize it. I would never say the cost of the cup of coffee.
Right.
But at the same time, as Chief eloquently said, you can wait for so long and the need only gets greater. And this is what we've seen. Our population's growing, our population's aging, and there's different needs. We've had community struggles in many ways, especially around gun violence. And we've got to get on it now, or we're going to have additional issues in the future.
Well said. So along those same lines, then, again, from your perspectives, why can't the city just fund more fire and police with the existing funds we have, especially they already pay $15 a month for the police, fire, and parks fee on their utility bills. So why can't we just fund more officers and firefighters through that?
Because as we talked about just a short time ago, everything costs more than it used to.
True.
And the state tax structure only allows so much growth in property taxes a year. And much like your home, the cost increases have outpaced the ability for that to keep up. And the police, fire, and parks fee goes exactly where we said it would. Most of it to the police and fire departments, a little bit for parks. It's very easy to track it in the budget. It's not like somebody's swiping money to use for other purposes there. It simply isn't possible. But that is a fixed amount. And while it did go up a few dollars a couple of years ago, there's no natural increase to it, unlike an assessed value where you see a little bit of growth in your assessed value, and that rate can increase over the term of the levy. And the fee was not and still isn't very popular with some people. And I think the council made a wise decision rather than increase the fee again to put it to the levy to the vote of the people like we did a year ago. We listened to them. It's been modified. It's better now than it was then. It's clearer. Great. So it's just another mechanism to help share that cost burden across a wider part of town.
And I just add that there's a lot of business to do in a city. And we need all of our staff. When I think about, looking internally at our own police department, we couldn't do the work that we need to do every day in answering 911 calls if we didn't have our support staff. And there are so many very important roles that people play that aren't in a uniform to make it all happen. And if we don't have those people supporting us, we can't get the work done effectively and safely. And so I think it's really easy, and I understand why that this is the nature of all of us, to look at where can you cut costs, where can you be more efficient. But I would argue, when again going back to that, how do we compare to as the fourth largest city in the state?
Right.
We do it with a lot less. We do a lot more with a lot less. And while we don't want to hang our hat on that and say, hey, look at us, we do a lot more with a lot less. We need everybody we have right now. Between HR and IT and internal services and support staff within our own departments, I can't really think of an area where I would want to make a cut, quite frankly. Now, we can have that debate all day, and I'm good with that. But, I think Gresham has done it historically, and a lot of it by, not maybe our own choosing, with a lot less money. But I think of all the good work that's been done to try to keep this community safe and operating it to its efficiency and, serving the public very well without the staff we currently have. I can't imagine going less. I don't know. You've been here a while. I mean,
I'm the same as you. Only 2 years. We
It's
started
like-
at the
right?
same
And
time.
it's
I can't even imagine with less staff.
I get
even-
challenged all the time,
yeah.
right? And I think about okay, so you want only one person in HR?
Right.
How are they going to hire 600 people?
How are they going to recruit?
Yeah.
And
I'm
like benefits and leave
I-
and all the things that go into
Yeah,
HR.
I'm just challenged by that. And I think, again, I go back to the focus of this levy, which is, I think Chief made a very good point. It's very clear this time. We listened to the
Yes.
voters. That's what's different. It lost by a very small margin. We listened to the voters. It's less of an ask, and it's very focused to police and fire, because we know that that's the service people, the frontline staff that we need in our communities.
And the top concern of our community
Yes,
that we
correct.
hear over
Correct.
and over.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. As we've touched on before, Gresham is growing. So with all of this new housing and apartments, does all the new housing help pay for these services?
Yes, with a caveat, only to a point. So again, they come in at an assessed value, not their real market value. The amount of growth they add to the budget is limited to 3% a year. And as in your own homes, things cost more than 3% than they did a couple years ago. The fact is, we simply could never build enough houses to grow out of the deficit we're in. And you have to remember, with new houses, new apartments, we also have more population, which drives the demand for service up. So yes, we have more houses. They're paying some more, but they're not paying enough more to really move the needle. And they make us busier than we were last year.
And that's for existing services, not even talking about adding additional
Right,
firefighters
correct,
and
right.
police officers.
And again, going back to that levy concept of retaining current staff,
Sure.
right? I am concerned if we don't get the levy, what does that look like? Or what does our future look like? I don't think we have a clear picture yet necessarily, but I know that the demand is not going away.
No.
So, we got to have those conversations about how do we appropriately fund our police and fire departments to meet the need, understanding that we can't do it without the help of the community. So,
If I may, I'll circle back
Sure.
to one of your earlier questions about the other communities around us.
Yes.
A lot of communities have long-standing property tax levies that help fund their fire departments, fire districts, police departments. Some places have both. They have fees and levies. People often look from the fire service to Clackamas County Fire District 1 and Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue.
Yeah.
Sure.
They have a separate fire tax rate, but they also have a levy. Tualatin Valley has a levy
It's on the ballot.
on the ballot on Tuesday, just like we do.
Yeah.
And that's to maintain where they are. And they've had those levies for a long, long time. And like you may have mentioned today, it's been about 30 years since Gresham had an additional levy on top of its property taxes.
Wow, that's significant.
Yeah.
Well, we did get a question online that I want to make sure we address. So, Casey, thank you for reaching out. This conversation is being recorded. It's going to be able to be seen on our YouTube. You can always go back to our Twitter, our Facebook channels, potentially Instagram. We're not sure. We're trying. But we also got one question. This is a little bit more specific. Chief Gullberg, can you talk about Gresham Police Department's relationship with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and if we're able to rely on them to supplement when needed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, the answer is we can rely, and I think as a fire department, we rely on, again, we talked about it a little earlier, our public safety partners. The problem is they have their own needs and things that they're trying to get done as well. So oftentimes, and it has happened, where they can't support us, and understandably, it's not because they don't want to, but they're meeting the needs of Troutdale, Fairview, Wood Village. So yes, they do oftentimes help us, but it's limited in scope, it's limited in ability. It's not something that you want to rely on all the time. And that's why oftentimes what we do, at least for the police department, we're calling people in and having them work more overtime, or mandatoring them in, or coming in early for their shift. So it's not a bad thing to be able to lean on the other departments and have that immediate assistance. It's a more challenging thing if you're having to rely on them all the time or for long periods of time. And so that's where, the focus of the levy is, ensuring we have the appropriate staff, and I don't know that you ever will reach that. And again, this is just a step forward, but we have to be cognizant of not making sure that we use up all of our resources and our tickets with other people to say, hey, can you help us again? Can you help us again? It happens all the time. And we do reciprocal work as well, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, it's a nice to have, shouldn't be the have to have.
Correct.
Yeah, it should be the exception, not the rule. You can't be dependent on your neighbors, or your neighbors won't be there for the one-offs when you really need them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
a great question, though.
Yeah, it is a great question. Chiefs, I have good news.
Yeah.
We have reached the end of all of the questions that we had collected from all the sources. I'm not seeing anything else come in online through the chats. So I think you guys may be off the hook. Are there any final parting thoughts, any last things, any pleas to the Gresham community that you would like to make?
Ballots are out. It's probably laying on the kitchen table or that other place where you pile your mail.
That's where mine is.
Get your ballot out. Think about it and please vote.
Yeah. And I would just say, go to Safer Oregon or safergresham.org.
Yes.
Yes, right?
That's
So it's .org, safergresham.org, or the city website to get informed. I'd ask you to educate yourself, be informed. Please watch this. I'm hoping a lot of people watch this and understand where we come from. I think it's important that you have the chief of fire and the chief of police here engaging with the community and trying to dispel some of the myths and the stuff that's out there in social media. Take time to be informed and please vote.
Good advice.
Good advice. Good advice for all of us. Thank you, Gresham, for tuning in. All of these, again, are going to be available for you to go back and watch as much as you would like to on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you happen to think of a question later on as you're watching, feel free to add in the comments there. We will do our best to go through and follow up with everyone. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch and chat with us today. And don't forget to vote on Tuesday.